Birds, bugs, wildflowers බලන්න.
They're incredibly loud for their size. That's all the bigger they are. They're incredibly abundant. I mean, so you hear the chickadee. Yeah, everybody's familiar. All of these plants we see here, they come out of the ground.
So cute.
Yeah, they're gentle snakes.
Yeah, he's not even putting his head back.
Birds, bugs, wildflowers බලන්න.
There's a lot of species here, and some of which we may see today, that are only in this area. This is basically a connection between the Adirondacks and what in Canada they call cottage country, which is the front neck axis up into the border. So you hear the chickadee. Yeah, everybody's familiar with it. It has little flowers that are kind of brown looking, and they smell bad. They're one of the early bloomers. Some of these have flowers, some of them don't. One you can see right here at the base. And there's the flower. Not very lovely, but yeah, right here. So you wouldn't even know it had a flower. You have to kind of dig in the leaves. So, see that? And so, you know, you can often infer what the pollinator might be from the form of the flower, the smell, and the color. So, yeah. Paper salad. Got that? At the risk of telling you something you already know, areas like this are really important, right? So this is a vernal pool. Vernal meaning spring pool, although our pools are really should be called autumnal pools because they fill in autumn, right? So these are areas. This little tiny frog is the one that we're hearing a lot this time of year. Yep, and you might be. Wow. Let me just. The abundance is, you know, you don't see them, right? I mean, you probably bring ephemeral plants. So ephemeral meaning like they're only here briefly for spring because it's spring. All of these plants we see here, they come out of the ground, put on their leaves, flower, and then start to fruit and set seeds. So these are very tasty. They're also called ramps. In most parts of the country, they're called ramps. In Europe, Britain, they're called ramps. Use them a lot in quiches and stuff, but you can use them everywhere if you want kind of a really strong, leaky, garlicky flavor. But what you do is they have two leaves. You pinch off one right here at the petiole. So you just pinch off one and leave one because it needs that to photosynthesize. It's an ephemeral. It's only going to be out a few weeks, month. Trying to put together the bloodroot had a long core, and then here's the two, and see if you can. People call this sometimes well, red trillium, some call it stinking William. And you see it's got red, kind of dark red, purplish. You would call them petals. They're actually kind of a bract here. They're kind of a modified leaf, but like a petal. Now, given what I said, given that they're stinky and purple, what pollinates them? Flies. It's a fly plant. And then in with this, you see this plant right here. This is blue cohosh. And that's a really important medicinal plant, especially for women's health, or at least traditionally like that has white flowers, which is called meadow rue. See that?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, blue cohosh. Has anybody seen that in the health food stores and things?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very effective. It has some, but it's one that you have to know what you're using. So up here we've got spring beauties and hepatica. Hepatica is one of the first that blooms, and it's kind of interesting. So hepatica, yeah, good for the liver. So medicinally, the name refers to liver, and it was thought to be medicinal. It was thought to be medicinal for the liver because the leaves are in 3 lobes, and the liver, at least the classic anatomy, is 3 lobes. So when you talk about, when people looked at medicinal plants, and it's true the world over, when people were looking for them, one way was simple experimentation. Another was called sort of the rule of signifiers. If it looked like something, that it probably was medicinal for that. So ginseng, that is a white-breasted nut. White-breasted nut.
Tree going into the hole at the top.
Usually, you usually start at the top and go down. This one going the other way.
අර ගහ උඩ මැද කඳේ මැද බලන්න.
ඒ ගහේමද?
නෑ අර පැත්තේ අර.
mytravels. අර ස්ටෝන් එක.
ඔව් ලස්සනයි. මේක රූට් එක නත්. ගොඩක් තිබුණා.
mytravels bouquet එකක්.
මොකද ගොඩක් තියෙනවා.
Family, which is basically granite that's been compressed. But what's interesting is that we are on basically a lobe or peninsula of the Canadian Shield. So probably many of you. So this rock going on up into cottage country in Canada and then into the main Canadian Shield or boreal area are all part of that really old geology. The Appalachian Mountains, and including in the White Mountains in that area, those are old mountains, but they're made of younger rock than the rock we have here.
නෑ අර පැත්තෙන් බහින්න.
Push or a pull? Are you all right? You okay?
යා අච්චිලා ශක්තිමත්. අච්චිලා ශක්තිමත් කිව්වා. ඒ අච්චිලා තමයි ගෙවල් ඇතුළට වෙලා. ගෙවල් ඇතුළට වෙලා ඉන්නේ.
Yeah, there's a thing. Sure.
Wow.
see. We'll call this one in. Maybe. Now, do you get? So you can imagine how different this landscape was 100 years ago when there were no beaver here. So it would be narrower streams and much more forested. Beavers were extirpated from New York in the early 1800s. And then they were reintroduced. Some people think that there were a few left, but they were either a few left around Tupper Lake or they were reintroduced at Inlet in about 1899, 1900, around then. And so the beaver populations have sort of spread from those early introductions. And of course now they are incredibly abundant across New York and the eastern United States. And supposedly the highest density of beavers in the world are in the St. Lawrence Valley of New York and in Canada. There are beavers in Europe, but they don't build dams. So they're bank beavers, but they don't know how to build dams. That's a North American thing.
So it's not something that they have from birth, like they'll learn to just.
No, it's instinctual. So one of the things you will notice this time of year is a number of beaver roadkill. Have you ever noticed that? It's in the spring, you see dead beavers on the road. There's a reason for that. So beavers are very social. Yeah, that's not true. Hang on. Old rock, young mountain.
Fine, it wasn't you. Somebody did go down on the bottom last year. Oh, it's not.
It senses that it's a patch of soil that's rich, and it'll then put in regular roots and put out a shoot. And then it might go in two different directions. So it might send out shoots two different directions. You might call them offspring, but they're genetically identical to the one sending it out. They're part of its body. It's a very young American toad.
Just baby.
Yeah, just a baby.
It's in the water. It must be a moccasin.
Yeah, exactly.
Really? I don't feel that way, so thank you.
No, I feel like I'm premature. Yeah,
I don't know if it's related to diagnosed late.
It's so cute. Nice.
Yeah.
it's so cute.
Yeah, they're gentle snakes.
Yeah, he's not even putting his head back.
Is it a one?
It is one that's
The dual ridges down his back are really good.
Yeah.
There's like at least 10 in this one pool.
It's so fun. Just visit them.
These are the first frogs you hear, like they sound like ducks quacking.
yeah, quack, 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 quack.
Yeah.
I recently found out that whatever the noise that ducks make when they fly is really odd.
Oh, yeah.
ඇමරිකාවේ වගේම කැනඩාවේ තවත් මේ වගේ ලස්සන තැන් බලන්න channel එක subscribe කරලා අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙන්න.